people think of giant prehistoric animals, the same names always appear. Tyrannosaurus, Megalodon, giant crocodiles, massive mammoths. But history was filled with enormous creatures that almost nobody talks about. Animals so strange, so massive, and so terrifying that they seem almost unreal. And today, we're looking at some of the most forgotten giants that ever lived. The first is something almost impossible to imagine: a giant amphibian. Not a crocodile, not a dinosaur, an amphibian. Known as the Beast of Lesotho, this creature lived during the early Jurassic period. Scientists discovered part of a massive jaw in South Africa, and from that single fossil, they realized this animal may have reached nearly long. To understand how insane that is, the largest amphibian alive today, the Chinese giant salamander, only grows around. That means this ancient predator may have been almost 4 times larger. It likely waded in rivers and swamps, hidden beneath dark water, before lunging at anything that came close. Early dinosaurs, smaller reptiles, and anything unlucky enough to approach the shoreline could have become prey. And for a moment, one of the largest predators in that ecosystem wasn't a dinosaur at all. It was an amphibian. But that was only the beginning. Another forgotten giant looked like a massive dinosaur, but wasn't one. This creature was Shuvosaurus-like relatives, bizarre archosaurs that lived during the Triassic period. One of them may have reached over, making it one of the largest animals ever to walk on 2 legs without being a dinosaur. At first glance, it looked like a giant predator. Long legs, tall body, huge frame. But surprisingly, it wasn't a hunter. It was a giant herbivore. Instead of sharp teeth, it had a beak for eating plants. So, while it looked like a nightmare, it may have spent most of its life quietly feeding on vegetation. And that makes it even stranger. Nature created something that looked like a monster, but behaved like a giant plant eater. Then there was a marine predator that could have turned any ancient shoreline into a nightmare. Nothosaurus. Most people have never heard of it, because it lived before the famous plesiosaurs. But some species may have grown over. It had a long neck, powerful jaws, and sharp teeth built for gripping prey. Unlike many marine reptiles, it may have been semi-aquatic, meaning it could move between water and land. Imagine standing on a beach and seeing a reptile longer than a great white shark crawling out of the waves. That was Nothosaurus. And while giant sea predators often get overshadowed by mosasaurs and megalodon, creatures like this ruled the oceans long before them. But one of the strangest giants of all wasn't a predator. It was a massive plant eater called Lissawitzia. Discovered in Poland, this bizarre creature lived before the giant dinosaurs truly dominated Earth, and scientists estimate it weighed around. That's roughly the size of a modern elephant. What makes that shocking is what it actually was. Lissawitzia wasn't a dinosaur. It was a distant relative of mammals. That means before giant sauropods walked the Earth, another group had already evolved enormous body size. It had a heavy, barrel-shaped body, pillar-like legs, and a powerful beak for cutting plants. And because of its size, very few predators would have wanted to challenge it. Still, fossil bite marks suggest even this giant wasn't completely safe. Ancient predators still hunted it, which proves something important. No matter how big you were in prehistoric Earth, something bigger was often nearby. Moving forward millions of years, mammals eventually produced giants of their own. One of the most overlooked was a relative of the rhino called Amblytherium. At first glance, it looked like a rhinoceros, but it was actually more closely related to horses. Some estimates suggest it may have weighed up to, making it one of the largest land mammals ever. Its skull alone was enormous, and it carried a huge horn-like structure on its nose unlike anything alive today. Scientists once believed it used that horn for combat, but newer research suggests it may have helped produce sound, allowing these giants to communicate across ancient forests. Imagine hearing a deep echo through the trees and realizing it came from an animal the size of a truck. But perhaps the most terrifying forgotten giant lived in the ocean, an ancient giant walrus. Its name was Pontoos magnus. Unlike modern walruses that feed mostly on shellfish, this one was likely an active predator. It grew over and may have weighed. That means it was roughly the size of a small elephant. But unlike an elephant, it hunted meat. Its skull was massive, its jaws were powerful, and its teeth were built for crushing prey. It likely hunted seals, birds, fish, and possibly even smaller marine mammals. And the most unsettling part? It lived along the ancient west coast of North America. If it still existed today, beaches in California might feel very different. But freshwater also had monsters. One of the most terrifying was Rissotus, a giant freshwater fish from the Carboniferous period. It could grow nearly 23 feet long, making it larger than many sharks. But it wasn't a shark. It was a lobe-finned fish, part of an ancient group related to the earliest animals that eventually walked on land. Its teeth were enormous, some longer than a Tyrannosaurus tooth, and researchers believe it may not have stayed fully underwater. Its powerful front fins suggest it could lunge from the water like a giant ambush predator, meaning even standing safely on shore might not have been safe at all. And then came Mawsonia, a giant coelacanth. Most people know coelacanths as strange, living fossils that survived into modern times, but ancient species were far larger. Mawsonia may have reached nearly 20 feet long and weighed over 2 tons. That's a fish heavier than 2 polar bears combined. Some scientists think it crushed shellfish. Others believe it may have swallowed prey whole using suction like a giant grouper. Either way, it was another reminder that prehistoric rivers could be just as terrifying as prehistoric oceans. And that's what makes ancient Earth so fascinating. Because beyond the famous giants everyone knows, there were countless forgotten monsters. Giant amphibians, towering mammal relatives, predatory walruses, monster fish, and creatures so strange they almost sound fictional. Yet they were real. And in many cases, they may have been even more unbelievable than the legends that replaced them.